Good evening and welcome to the North Country Roast of Ray Burton. I'm Brien Ward, president of Littleton Main Street. And has everyone got a hold of their program yet? Okay. We need to go over the program so you know what the rules are. Okay. This event is basically being staged as a 15-round main event with 15 contenders from A to Z taking on Ray. I'll now turn it over to Ruth Taylor, who is the executive director of Littleton Main Street, to talk about the Great American Main Street Award and other things going with Main Street. Ruth?
Thank you, Brian. Also on the table before you tonight are a couple of pieces about Littleton Main Street. I just wanted you to be aware that this function is a fundraiser for Littleton Main Street. Ray Burton is not the only one who has fundraisers, so I guess that's the only little dig I'm going to be able to get in tonight, Ray. But I have to tell you, it's not for you, Ray, sorry. As I was walking around this afternoon putting paper down on the table, the women from the Elks who were also setting the table said, you know, I think the last time I saw this many tables in here was the night that George Bush was here. So I think that it's not Ray or the contenders who are going to win here tonight, but I think it's Littleton Main Street who's going to win. And so we thank you all very, very much for being here. One of the pieces on the table tonight is about the Great American Main Street Award. When I came back to live in the North Country 3 years ago, I went to work for the Caledonian Record. And I was the Littleton bureau chief, and I looked at this town and I said, boy, I've never seen such a better bunch of can-do people, really incredible. And then a year later, I took over as Main Street executive director, and I can recall telling people that I felt like, never having done this before, I was riding a bicycle downhill reading the manual on how to ride a bike as it was all happening. Well, a lot was happening, and so a few months ago, because of so much happening in downtown Littleton, we decided to apply for what's called the Great American Main Street Award to the National Main Street Center. Each year, 5 communities are chosen out of the 1,600 in 44 states nationwide. Most of them don't even bother to apply until they've achieved a certain status in terms of the reinvestment statistics and so forth, and accomplishments. We felt, Brien and our board of directors felt this year that we were ready, and so as I got through with that application, which is on the table in front of you, I was just absolutely astounded at what has happened. But I want to say it's not the Littleton Main Street organization alone. This award will go to the town, not for what our Main Street volunteers do, although they do a tremendous amount, but for what this town accomplishes. And that's really what the Main Street program is about. It's about community. It's not simply about retailers on Main Street downtown. It's about community. So I want to say thank you to all who have contributed to this event tonight in many ways, big and small. The raffle items were a gift of love from a lot of folks, some of them on Main Street. And I especially want to thank Ray Burton for letting us make fun of him at his expense. Thank you.
Bob Copenhagen, will you please come forward? In 1961, that was not the year Bob was born. He was born quite a bit before that. But in 1961, the view from the interstate was deemed the second most scenic vista in the entire interstate system. Unfortunately, over the next 35 years, it grew up. The Littleton Main Street, one of the main projects we did was that we're working in partnership with the state of New Hampshire, the Department of Transportation, had the opportunity to clear 4/10 of a mile. Commissioner Carol Murray, who will be speaking later on, was able to move the Department of Transportation from their position of they thought every reason why we couldn't do it to coming up with the reasons why we could do it. And the reasons were specifically that we had to pay for it, which was fine. She was all in favor of us doing it as long as we'd pay for it. last September, we had a series of presentation of 12 different individuals that had made a big difference in making that come forward and also support of the Littleton Main Street. Bob couldn't make it. We weren't quite sure if he was shutting off the heat for a widow or not, but he couldn't make it that particular day. No. Well, Bob, you know, concerning the beating that Ray's going to take, that wasn't much. So, anyways, the reason Bob is entitled to this was in June of 1992, Littleton was in dire economic straits. We had double-digit unemployment. We had 17 vacancies on Main Street. We did not have access to credit for our small businesses. We were in absolute dismal downturn to our economy. A group of citizens went to the selectmen in June of 92 and asked them to create what's called the Economic Development Task Force. And Bob has been the chair the last 6 years, Bob?
Oh, more than that.
All right. But Bob, originally 75 members of the community came together to take responsibility of where we wanted to go in the future. We had 7 committees, and one of them was a downtown Main Street committee, which Bob chaired. Now, it's important that you realize that all of the things that are happening on Main Street have been the result of Bob's vision. The Riverwalk, which we hope to break ground on next summer, was part of Bob's vision. And believe me, Bob isn't gray-haired, but it took him about, what, 6 years, Bob, before you finally figured out where the money was? Bob stayed with it. The Littleton Main Street organization. Bob, basically from about the 1st of January of 96, got us organized because we were made aware that the Main Street program was coming to New Hampshire July 1st of 1996. And Bob had Kathy LaPlante here for a visit in August. And then in January, we were selected as one of the 3 communities to become a Main Street community in New Hampshire. There are now, I believe, 18 communities. Bob has been the visionary of Main Street, and without that vision, we would not have the Main Street that we have right now. And because of Bob's vision, now everyone has a great vision of the town of Littleton from I-93. So Bob, I'm just kidding. I knew you weren't turning off the heat on a widow. You actually were providing heat for a widow. So anyways, Bob, this is for you.
Thank you, Brien. Appreciate that very much.
Ralph. We have a second presentation to make. And this is going to be, we're really playing a trick on this guy. He's usually behind the camera. Bob O'Connor, will you please come forward? Bob is the founder, sole employee. I'm not quite sure what he isn't. He's everything that is what's called Channel 2 in Littleton. And Channel 2 in Littleton has been a critical medium, to get information out to the community. And Bob has given his time tirelessly so that the community can learn what's going on, can figure out whether they like it or not, can tell those who are held accountable whether they do or not. And everything that happens on Channel 2 is the result of Bob's effort. One of the key things that you have to understand about Bob is that Bob has a great sense of curiosity. Not only did he bring Channel 2, but Bob brought computers to Littleton High School. In what year, Bob? 1971? 1970, 1971. The original computer, yes, Michael? 60. Okay, yeah. Yeah, Mike Cryans was spending his 6th year in high school there, and so he would remember. So those were good years, Mike, weren't they? Yeah. Anyways, Bob brought computers to Littleton High School, and if you remember what computers looked like at that time, they were probably half of the size of one of the tables. So Bob brought that. He was head of the science department. He has served as a library trustee, and he just has been an absolute outstanding citizen for Littleton. Now, the reason that Bob didn't get one of these when we gave out the first 12 was that Bob was filming. And anyone who is up on the interstate with cars whizzing by 60 miles an hour, we can trust Ralph Doolin with the camera while he's seated, but we didn't want him doing that up on the interstate. So Bob, on behalf of Littleton Main Street, we'd like to present this to you because it's a great view of 1961. It's a great view of the daylight of of the interstate, from the interstate of the town, and it's a great one at night. Thank you, Bob. Okay, now that we have the 15 contenders back in their neutral corners, we can start with a little bit of discussion that may generate some tension. Those of you who have been following the Caledonian, they've been doing a great job following Ray through the North Country, getting his quotes as to how he anticipated responding to this particular event tonight. He basically laid the gauntlet down, said that all had been duly warned, that he has a great memory, and that he was prepared to give as good as he's going to take. And as you can see in the program, each one of the 15 have 5, and then the final round, Ray has unlimited time, more or less. Barbara Ashley, come on down.
There you go, get out of the way. Good evening, everyone. Do I have to adjust this microphone? There we go. Welcome to all of you politicians and servants of the government here in New Hampshire and otherwise that I haven't met yet, and I have to tell you that, gee, you don't look and behave anything like Ray Burton told me you did. Wow, that's good news. There are a lot of exciting things going on in New Hampshire tonight, and believe me, this is not going to be one of them. But I do want to congratulate Brien for putting this evening together for the great cause. I don't know about the rest of you, but I had tickets for the Willie Nelson concert, and here I am. But in any event, I will be able to recoup that from the Friends of Ray Burton account, won't I, Ray? I've probably known Ray longer than anyone here, with the exception of Jim Walker, who was a classmate. But I've known Ray longer because Jim tended to ignore Ray. You see, Ray didn't drink and race all over the North Country, cutting a wide swath of mayhem and chaos. So Jimmy tended to ignore Ray, but I have to tell you, my goodness, but aren't you the late bloomer? I don't think you could keep up with him today, Jimmy. Ray was born in a rambling farmhouse on a dirt road in Bath, one of New Hampshire's significantly historically small villages, famous for its antiques, and Ray has finally achieved that status as well. Rumor has it that Ray's birth was rather a ho-hum event. Townfolk in those days were still trying to decide how to pronounce the name, Bath or Bath. And they didn't deal with all those little population burps that were going on. They say Ray's mom was actually preparing dinner, and she excused herself briefly, turned around and said, "Oh, nice, it's a boy. Put him over there with the other kids. I have to go check the potatoes." True story. I don't know who was supposed to check on that baby, but everyone else has moved on with their lives and left, and Ray Burton still lives in that farmhouse on the back road in Bath. None of us in Woodsville ever heard of Ray Burton until he entered high school. I was an upperclassman checking out the freshmen from Bath, and there was Ray. Now talk about unforgettable. Button-down collar, button-up shirt, really comfortable in a tie, never creating problems, constantly trying to organize everything. Yes, ma'ams, no, sirs, all of that goody-goody stuff. Honestly, if they'd made a movie back then called Dull, Duller, or Dullest, a star would have been born. The most exciting thing Ray ever did, he tried to outlaw poodle skirts. Not that he didn't think we all looked cute in them, but he actually believed it was cruelty to animals. Guess that makes you the first advocate of animal rights. That was way back in the 50s, yes. I would like to say that Ray left his mark on Woodsville High, but he was afraid of getting detention for writing on walls. He wouldn't even write on the chalkboards. He was afraid he didn't have the right answer. But he was every mother's dream, and especially to my mother, a teacher, who always referred to him as that nice young boy who was always so helpful and worked so hard. Good grief, he had to if he was going to graduate. But I escaped 2 years later, was in safe at PTC. That's what Plymouth State was back then. And contrary to what you heard tonight, back in Charlie Berry's day, it was Plymouth Normal School. Ray and Charlie didn't go to Plymouth together. Charlie was gone, Ray came in. In fact, there was Ray right behind me, of course. I turned around at Plymouth, and there he was, of course, followed me right on to the same college. Then I started getting all those phone calls from my mother. That nice Ray Burton was organizing alumni associations back home. She told him I'd help, and that nice Ray Burton was working hard at Plymouth. And all I could say was, you bet, Mom, those little state diplomas come a lot harder than those high school ones do. So he was working hard. All those reports from my mother about the wonderful community services and civic responsibilities that Ray was fulfilling, and she continually praised Ray ad nauseum, and he could do no wrong. Of course, avoiding controversy, Ray, makes that happen. You see, I would mumble something to my mother about no guts, and she wouldn't speak to me for weeks. She adored you, Ray. And by the way, you didn't even come to her funeral, did you? So how did I end up as Ray's fiscal agent? I think my mother left me the job in her will. Actually, Ray and I share an unabashed love of New Hampshire and the North Country in the best Republican manner that we can. We have similar work ethics. I tend to function as all guts and no glory, and Ray... My main function is to keep Ray humble. He does make that easy. After all, it's not too far a stretch from whole home to humble. But I am one of his staunchest supporters. I do take advantage of his unlimited energy and service to us all, and I make myself available for him night and day. However, there is no truth to the rumor that Ray and I are going to be married. Come on, 20 points! Knowing every detail of his fiscal life is not a qualifier, though God knows I have 28 crates of receipts that would render an industrial shredder helpless. It goes much deeper than that. In making myself so available, I'm at the mercy of his endless requests for mailing lists, labels, copious reports, instant updates, and the latest donations, on and on and on. Constant phone calls. Now, I have caller ID. So I know when he's calling, and I pick up the phone and I say, "Hi, Ray Ray." And this voice comes back and always says, "Yes, Barbara, Ray Burton." Yikes. So you see, I just can't picture myself married to a man who would come home from a long day of government and politics and greet me with, "Honey, I'm home." "Yes, Barbara, Ray Burton." We really are great friends, and we do share some good times together. Ray even includes my family when we can. I have grandchildren who call Ray New Hampshire's #1. They love that black car with those fancy license plates, you see. And by the way, Ray, you still owe them a tour of the State House. I can't wait to hear how you're going to explain to my grandchildren that you really are not the governor of New Hampshire. I would like to tell you that now that Ray is senior executive counselor, that does happen, you know, when like Bernie Streeter retires and all of a sudden Ray's the oldest one there. He probably will be there forever. Now, how do you get someone like that to retire? It's quite simple. I would tell you folks, if you want that to happen, the best thing to do is get rid of me first, because I can guarantee you Ray Burton will be 2 years behind me somewhere.
Barbara, I can't believe Ray didn't attend your mother's funeral. It's the first one he's missed in 50 years. And you're frightening poor Carol Murray into coming up here. By the way, John Sununu brings greetings from the 1st District. He appreciates your endorsement of Bob Smith. But you gotta settle for the Z to take his place over here. You know, Ray, I got a calendar from you the other day, 2001. I'm not kidding. You know, the old adage, waste not, want not. Well, Ray doesn't waste and we don't want. He has combs, he has hats, he has fans, he has, what is it, pencils? God almighty knows all that stuff. At least he gives us trash bags to put all the junk into when we're done. And you know, when we travel with Ray, which I did last year with John LaBombard, you know, we go around, he always is offering to pick up the check. But they're only the checks that are made out to him. By the way, you can tell when it's election year because Ray holds a fundraiser on New Year's Day. And in fact, he will do everything he can to help the working man except be one. Biologists. Come on, give me a point for that one, right? Biologists claim that there is no such thing as the perfect man in the world. Obviously, they haven't read Ray Burton's campaign literature yet. Some say Ray Burton is a pain in the neck. Others have a slightly lower opinion of him. And when Ray is speaking and he says, in conclusion, you know he's just catching his second wind. You know, Ray, the only person I'm missing here tonight is your old buddy and friend, who really ought to be standing in for me, Peter Estabrooks. And I can think of other few close friends that we might have here to really make you have fun tonight. Well, my friends, I have wasted 3 hours coming up here tonight to roast Ray Burton. But it's all for a good cause and for a good guy. And thank you, Ray, for everything that you've done for us and for New Hampshire.
Oh, Ray. Before I start my remarks, I was asked to read this letter as I was heading up. Dear friends, it is with great pleasure that I announce today that I will no longer be in